G'day, mate. What's your name?
My name's Akmal Saleh.
Akmal Saleh.
But you can call me Peter.
Peter?
Well, when I started doing comedy, I changed my name to Peter because you may find this hard to believe, but back in the 90s when I started, Arabs weren't as popular as they are today. You know, they were, so I was a bit scared.
Wow.
I was the only brown-skinned person doing comedy. Now there's millions of them.
G'day, Andrew Barnett here, welcoming you to another episode of Crowd Workcast. If you have been listening to the show and enjoying it and you haven't already subscribed to it, please do subscribe to it wherever you're listening. Give it a like. If you're so inclined to leave a review, reviews really help. So, I'd love it if you could give it a review. If you're not yet following me on social media, I am at Andrew Barnett Comedy on Instagram, on Facebook, Andrew Barnett Comedian, and on Twitter, I'm Mr. A Barnett. Now, if you haven't followed me, give me a follow, reach out, interact, let me know who you'd love to see on Crowd Workcast, who you'd like to see me chat to, and what you'd like to see me chat to them about. That'd be fantastic. Let me know you're watching the show and enjoying it. Now, today's show is Akmal Saleh. Akmal was one of the first blokes the first comedians to ever get me to open for him. He's been really supportive of my comedy over the years. So this was a really fun chat. I've got a lot of time for Akmal. I love him. And of course, he's one of the funniest blokes kicking around. So if you are into the comedy of Akmal, I've got good news because he is on tour. I've got a whole bunch of dates here. End of January, he's in Parramatta. Then he heads to Barwon Heads, Tweed Heads. Then he's heading over to Perth, Adelaide, the Gold Coast, Melbourne, Sydney. First half of 2023, Akmal is on the road. All those dates and tickets can be found at akmal.com.au /tour or akmal.com.au and just follow the navigation links. I'm sure it's pretty easy from there. If you do want to see me live, I've got a few things kicking on around Sydney, but the main thing I'm plugging at the moment is Brisbane. I'm coming to Brisbane May 6th as part of the Brisbane Comedy Festival. I'll be there one night only at the Underground Theatre. So please do come along to that Brisbane Comedy Festival for tickets to that. And then Sydney Comedy Festival, I'm doing 2 nights at the Enmore Comedy Club at the Enmore Theatre, May 20 and 21. I believe those tickets are on sale already. So Sydney Comedy Festival or Enmore Theatre for those tickets. I'll get links up on my website too, which is andrewbarnettcomedy.com. Other than that, there's not really much else to plug, so enjoy this episode. This is me with Akmal Saleh. So when did you start comedy? What are we talking?
Mid-90s, maybe, like 90, maybe 94, something like that, 93, 94.
And why comedy?
Why comedy? Well, I tried everything else and failed at everything else. I failed at everything else. I'm not joking about that. I really tried. I'm not good with my hands. With one hand, I'm very good. But usually I'm not skilled in any, I'm not mathematical. I'm not technical. I'm not, so this was the only thing. I'm a lazy person by nature. I'm very lazy and I like sleeping in. And this is the perfect job. Perfect lifestyle. 1 hour and 10 minutes of work a day, a night. And sometimes you don't work at all.
See, that to me is how some people think comedy is. But for most of us, that's, we have to work harder. Are you really like...
No, I'm lazy. I'm really lazy. I don't know how. There's a lot of luck involved in this business. I'm very, very lucky. No, seriously.
We've worked together a bunch. And, to think that you don't have to work that hard to get to what you're doing is frustrating.
Look, I work on stage. Yeah, I work on stage. So
you're very good on stage.
I work like I try to. All my good material comes from just mucking around on stage on a good night.
So you write on stage a lot.
Mostly. Yeah. So most of looking back, most of my good material, the really funny stuff, I kind of worked out on stage. So you kind of. You just have an idea, just like you might say something and a little bit of a laugh, and then you build on it the next night. You go, oh yeah, there's something there. I'll build on that, and so that's where I do my writing. I've tried to sit down and write you know, like at my desk, you know, just, but then you just come up with jokes about a desk. You know, you know, and your chair, swiveling chair.
So you need the stimulus of the audience to get the brain
you
ticking
need that
over.
energy and that excitement, and there's no way of knowing whether something's funny or not. You know, and this you immediately know. You know, if it gets a big laugh, you go, "Oh wow!" And sometimes you don't. You go, "I can't believe that they got a laugh." You know, I wouldn't have thought that was funny. And then other things you think of off stage, and you think, "Oh, this is gonna kill. This is beautifully constructed, and I'm gonna deliver it well." And it doesn't work.
There's nothing more disappointing than that when you have that moment where you go, "Oh, this is going to be great."
Yeah,
you come up with an idea, and you're so excited for it, and the audience just look at you like, "Huh,
yeah,
don't know, mate."
You know what's worse
What?
is when you ad lib something once, and it kills, it gets applause, and you go, "Great, I've got a new bit," and it never works again. It's like God's there going, "Fuck you! you think you're good? You think, I'll humble you by making it die every single time."
That's what I've done a few. I was actually hosted a new material night a little while ago, and I said to the audience, I said, "Look, just this is all these acts are doing new material. They're trying to test it out. So keep that in mind, but also don't be so kind that they think it's good if it's not." Because sometimes you get those audiences that are so into everything that you're like, "Oh man, that new stuff crushes." And then
and then you do the Blacktown Workers Club, and they crush you physically. You know what I mean? That's back to reality very quickly.
Exactly.
I know what you mean. Yeah, some audiences, like up at the Northern Rivers in Byron Bay, they're hippies. You know, there's they're mostly stoned, and you're doing stand up to people that can't stand up, you know, and they're very loving, and they laugh at everything, and you go, "I'm a genius," and then you go to back to Bankstown Sports Club, and you go, "Yeah, that's not fucking funny, mate. Tell us a joke," and you go, "But it was funny in Byron." The hippies found it funny.
Like I think too, like when you do a corporate or whatever, and they've just decided, let's get comedy like as part of something else, and they haven't put any more thought into it than that. We'll get a comedian. He's real funny. I saw him at the comedy club. And then, but they don't understand that there's actually a bunch of context,
of course,
to comedy that helps make it work. Like
corporates are really hard, especially because they pay so well and they treat you so well before the gig. Then after the gig, they give you that look, "You bastard, how much are we paying for you?" And I go, "Yeah, but you could have provided with good sound," and the audiences are like miles away, and no one really knows who you are.
And in fairness, they're eating.
They don't care. They don't know who you are. They're not there for comedy. They're there to sort of,
it's their Christmas party. I'm the interloper.
They impose you on them. I did a gig where, speaking of someone who sees you doing well in a different context, this guy comes up to me and he goes, this is a while ago, and he says, "Mate, I love your stuff. It was a good night. Would you do my parents' 60th wedding anniversary? We live in Dover Heights, and we come to the house, and they paid really well, right?" And I thought, and I got there.
And you want to in Dover Heights.
In Dover Heights, man, it was this 3-story mansion, but all these Jewish people, like excessively wealthy Jewish people. They had the pool in the backyard was bigger than my entire house.
Oh.
I'm not kidding. It had a waterfall, and they had a chef, like a full-time chef. And I got there, and they were paying so well. And I said, "Do you have any microphones?" And he goes, "No, we got none of that." So I got my friend Nick Penn to get me a stage, and he hired this stuff. So I paid him to come in and do it. So we're in the backyard, and I got on, and from the moment I got on, they hated my guts. They just hated me with a passion, because it was my fault. I got on and just thought I was being witty, and I said, "Okay, so you're Jews and I'm an Arab. We're all circumcised here, so let's have no hostility, okay?" And it's just like nothing, like you can hear nothing, right? And then I got into my act and forgot that they're like 70, 80-year-old Jewish people, and I was swearing, and I was inexperienced then. And this is the thing, there was about 60 people, 70 people, and the stage was on wheels. Right, so these guys, as I'm doing my act, they came and pushed me wheeled me off the stage, like just basically.
They didn't have to push you off stage; they pushed the stage.
They
off.
wheeled me off the stage, like I'm doing my act, and I'm just seeing the audience go past me, and to the huge applause. The applause was because I was exiting there, and they didn't want to pay. It was just an awful night, but they did pay eventually.
That is, there's nothing worse than when you think, okay, I'll do something witty right at the top. Something you take a punt,
yeah,
and then you just spend the rest of the set just digging yourself out of a hole.
Oh no, this was a coffin. It wasn't a hole. It was death from the start, and it was awkward because I was at their house. Like I just ruined their entire night, because your pride gets the better of you, and you just go fuck them, and then you get louder and more sort of abusive. And when I was younger, I was less experienced, so that's what you do to try and regain some of your dignity,
Yeah, I think when the more experienced, you get the context of, okay, this was only going to go within a parameters. This was only going to go so well.
Yeah.
And you're just like, whereas when you're younger and you're newer, you think, okay, I need to learn how to crush in any circumstance.
Yeah.
Which is a great goal to have, but then it's not totally realistic. And you need to need to just recognize when, okay, that was stacked against me.
But also comics have this sort of self-destructive sort of sabotage kind of mentality. So you think, if I'm going to go down, I want to take everyone down with me tonight.
Yeah.
It's that suicide bomber mentality.
Yeah. That you're not rejecting me. I'm
rejecting you. I want you to have a terrible night because you're, it's that. It's like when a girl breaks up with you. Well, I was going to break up with you anyway. As if.
Yeah, it's the. So you started in the 90s, and you started as Peter Saleh.
Yeah, I changed my name. This is what happens, right? It was really blokey back then. The Comedy Store was mostly, I would say 100% guys. I can't think of any. Maybe cut one, open micers who would come in, and they were like butch women. They had to be, because it was all mostly bucks nights and hens nights, and it was all that brutal kind of sort of environment. And I tried to get on an open mic couple of nights in a row, and she, there was a manageress there, and she was a really tough chick as well, and she would, she had to be. It was really tough environment, and she got, no, you missed out 2 weeks in a row, and then finally the third week she goes, yeah, I've got a spot for you, 5-minute spot, free spot, and you get nervous all day, and then you don't do it. It was really, you really have to love doing it. And she goes, yeah, I've got a spot for you. You ready to go? I said, yeah. She goes, what's your name? I said, Akmal Saleh. She went, how? What? And I said, Peter. She goes, oh, I thought you said something else. Peter. And I must have said Peter subliminally, because I realized there was so many Peters. There was Peter Berner, Peter Green, Peter Mizell. There was about 10 Peters for some reason, and I thought, well, I'll just join them.
Why not?
Why not?
They seem to be going well, the Peters.
They're going all right. I'll go with Peter. That's good for the career. But it turned out Akmal was better for the career. And I'll tell you something. I've told you this before, but since I was doing well, when I started, I was doing all these suicide bombing jokes and mad Arab jokes, because I felt.
So this is mid-90s.
Yeah. I thought I had the right, I had the license to do that.
Yeah.
And I was getting, laughs, and this little brown man's amusing, and then September 11 happened, and suddenly I was a genius. They go, wow, this guy's doing social commentary, and so. September 11 was terrible for a lot of people, but it was great for my career.
Yeah. I want to know, there's somewhere out there's a comedian that was doing pandemic jokes like 3 years ago that's now just going, I am...
Yeah, this guy's a prophet.
Yeah.
How did he know? But there's a lot of luck involved in this business, so that was lucky in a way.
So you were doing, so your background is...
Egyptian.
Yeah. So obviously, I think, and we discussed, so full disclosure, we tried to start recording this, and we had a recording fail. And
we were so funny.
We were nailing it.
We were brilliant.
Oh.
And, if only we could redo that, but, it's...
So if this sounds like it's not as good as it was, just picture it being better.
They didn't know. They don't know. They don't know. They think it's great.
Yeah, but...
It's like when you go to, when you think you've had a flat night, and people come up to you and say, oh, well done, mate. And you go, oh, no, you should have seen me last night. I was so much better.
Yeah.
Oh, if you think that was good.
I had one of them last night where I I could feel off, and I wasn't enjoying
Yeah.
my set, but it was going fine.
Yeah.
Like, so even the other acts, like, mate, they sound like a great crowd. I'm like,
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh no, this is just me. Like I wasn't. They were a great crowd, and it went fine.
Yeah. You didn't have the rhythm. You didn't have you weren't in the moment.
But it's nice to get to a point where you go, okay, I had an off night, and the audience didn't seem to notice. That's that, because for a long time, you have an off night, and everyone notices you.
But you were so insecure. Like there's an old joke that says this guy goes, and this is a real comics joke. This guy comes up to this guy and goes, "Man, I saw you the other night. You were great. I never laughed so hard in my life." And he goes, "Oh, really? Which show did you see, the early or the late?" Because I was better in the early.
Yeah, that is so true. That's like that feeling, and it's like the same thing. You always find the person who doesn't look like they're enjoying themselves. You might be performing to 700 people. There's one person not laughing, and you don't know. They might have had a death in the family that day. It's not but you take it personally. You go, "Oh, he's not finding me funny." Yeah. It's like, oh man, I'm supposed to be able to do. No. Sometimes people just don't want it. You can't.
Yeah, it's kind of pathetic, really. We're kind of sad people.
Yeah. That's what I say. I'll often, when I host now, I often say to people, especially if there's a range of acts on who, and there's some out there thinkers.
Yeah. Different.
Yeah, and you're looking at the crowd going, I don't know if these guys, like, if they're not a comedy savvy crowd. I'll often point out, like I say, look, you're going to hear some weird shit. I said, because no one does this because they're well adjusted. Yeah. And that's so.
Oh yeah.
And they all laugh, and I'm like, no, I'm being serious.
Oh man, it's a fine line between being a great comedian and just having a mental illness. It's a blurred line,
100%. There's So mid-90s, you start as Peter.
Yeah, for a few years, and then I was working with Gary Eck and Anthony Murr. We did sketches together, and we did a show on Fox. It was called the 50-Foot Show, and they insisted that I use Akmal, right? And just legality, just for legal reasons, I had to use my real name, in the credits. And so I just, from that point on, when the people who did watch the show and enjoy it would see me and go, "Hey, Akmal, enjoyed your show."
And it's funny now to think back. There was a time when you were hesitant to use your name, because you do have one of those names. Akmal is just, like, I think most audiences don't know you as Akmal Saleh. They know you as Akmal.
Yeah. Well, they just shorten it. It's easier to remember. Yeah. And I didn't choose that. It's just people, and I've been introduced, like, before I had a profile, people, when I was doing, like, in a set with different comedians, I've been introduced as Ahmed, Abdul, and they
all the hits.
And some people want to be politically correct, so they think it's Ach. So they, "Please welcome Akmal," and I forgot, it's not Ach, it's just Ak.
Akmal. So you grew up in Sydney though?
Yeah.
So were you born
I was born in Egypt, and I came out when I was 11.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and we moved to a place called Punch Bowl.
Yes.
So and it wasn't much of an improvement. It was just as violent.
Mate, you because you were, a few years ago, you were living in Revesby, and you moved, and which is back in that area, and I was living over at East Hills, which is 2 suburbs over. And I remember bumping into you, and you were real depressed because you were living in Revesby. And you were like, "Mate, I'm living in Revesby. What's going on?" And I'm like, "Mate, I go to the shops in Revesby."
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, you go for your holidays in Revesby. Yeah. But no, look, it's not that bad. It's what you make of it. I grew up in most of my childhood. We lived right behind the tip in Punch Bowl. So when we were kids, when we were 11, 12, 13. School holidays, we did, we weren't rich, so we didn't go on holidays, but we'd go to the tip and just spend the day in the tip just finding shit. And he'd find like boxes of paint, and like once I found a big box of ball bearings. That was the best day of my life. Look at those ball bearings. 13, maybe.
That's the perfect.
Yeah. It was
toy for a 13-year-old.
No, but just rummaging through the tip.
Yeah.
During the school holidays, people would say, "Oh, that's so sad." No, it's not. Other kids would go to skiing in Switzerland or something.
But when you're that age, especially, that is like, I remember going with my dad, like, there was nothing better than, come, you want to come to the tip? I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, we want to come to. And while he's unloading everything off a trailer,
You're finding shit.
you're going over to see what you can.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he's like, we're not taking that home.
Yeah, yeah.
You just throw it over the fence.
Well, my mum, I kept those ball bearings for a long time. I didn't know what to do with them, and then my mum threw them out eventually. Where are my ball bearings? That's not a sentence you hear all the time.
Oh, so you grew up there. So so you went to school out there?
Yeah, went to school. Yeah, Punchbowl Primary, and then I went to Bankstown Boys.
Oh wow!
And then I spent like year 7 and 8. I was in Bankstown Boys, and then my parents moved me to a private school because they decided they wanted me to live, because it was a really violent school. It was like fights. I never got bullied because I was always funny. I was always putting shit on myself. And so once you put shit on yourself, there's no challenge for the bullies.
Yeah,
it's only when you take life seriously they go, this guy's easy. They can
Yeah, hard to knock a guy down a peg if
when he's doing it to himself.
Yeah,
yeah.
So where'd you go to private school?
I went to Trinity Grammar for about 2 years, and then I got kicked out.
Oh,
yeah.
Just doing too well, I'm guessing.
Yes, I was dux of the school every year.
Akmal, stop answering all the questions. Let the other kids have a go.
Come on, you're making everyone look bad. No, I was terrible academically. I've been diagnosed with this condition, and I'm sure most comedians have it. It's called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which means you can't concentrate for longer than 30 seconds. And it used to be called fucking idiot. And they used to beat you up. Teachers were allowed to beat you up. Like you tell anyone under 30 that.
Yeah.
And they go, what? Did you not call the police? What that's assault.
Right. It is a foreign concept now. I remember taking, like, even the way kids are with each other now compared to when I was at school is just the bullying seems to be less.
It's online now.
Yeah, it's online. It's more insidious in that way. But like,
Yeah.
I just remember, like, stuff that my oldest boy's in year 6, and you see stuff and they're just talking the stuff they talk about in terms of just how they just get to be little kids. Like he'll still give you a big hug outside the playground, and his mate will be standing there going,
Yeah.
Hey, come and pet, like, and doing the same.
They seem
with his
much
parents.
older than when we were their age, right?
Yeah,
they seem like adults.
But they also, like, they're much more comfortable. They're not embarrassed about their parents as much as
it's different. Different.
We were
different breed of human, I reckon.
Yeah, it's a bit nicer.
Yeah. It's a lot harder for them, I reckon. In a lot of ways, because it's a colder world.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it's a more distant world. The thing is, someone made a point the other day that you say if you bully someone online, you don't get to see their reaction. Like if you bully someone at school physically, you see them crying, and then your empathy hopefully takes over, and you go, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
That really hurt that person. But when you're in your room bullying someone online, you don't see the consequence of your actions.
That's really interesting. I'd never really thought of that impact from that side of it.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's breeding a generation of people with no empathy, or it's taking away that empathy, that human touch. When you're with someone physically and you see them hurt, you don't see the consequence of your actions when you bully someone online. Mate, when I was on radio, I got like I'm thick-skinned, but there's a guy, I was hated so much by so many. This guy put up a page saying, let's kill Akmal, and people were suggesting how I should die. And some of them were quite creative. There's like this guy said, bury him up to his head and paint his head like a soccer ball, because I'm bald, right? And then invite all these Greeks and Lebanese people. Right? Some of them were quite creative, but because I was with Nova, the police got involved. Well, it's just the lawyers and because it's like
well, you can't threaten to kill people.
You can't threaten to kill people. It's illegal.
Yeah,
you find that out the hard way, and they found it was a guy in Wollongong, and it turned out the police approached him and said, you have to take that site down, and he said, oh yeah, no, sorry, yeah. Do you reckon I could meet Akmal?
What? That is always, that fascinates me, because I've been doing some fill-in shifts for radio at SEN, which is just like AM sports talk, and it's fun. It's real fun, but the text line, like you said, people just have no mercy.
Well,
in terms of-
if they saw your reaction to what they're saying or what they're doing, they're less likely to do it. But because it's got no consequences, they can say, let's kill him, and then go and make a cup of coffee.
But then they also keep listening, which is the thing
that's the weird
baffles
thing.
me.
That's the weird thing. Like, people hate me, but I go, why do you listen? There are so many
Yeah.
other stations you can listen to.
This poor guy.
And they know exactly what you've said, and they hate what you've said, but then they continue listening.
This poor guy, he's stuck in a car that the radio doesn't switch off Nova.
It's stuck on Akmal permanently. It's in his head now to build a chip inside his head. That you
It
can...
just keeps playing the podcast from yesterday.
Yeah.
Wow. So how long were you doing? Like, you've done a fair bit of radio now.
Yeah,
haven't
yeah. Look, I did a fair bit. It's really weird. Like, some people really are aware of what's going on in their careers. Like, if something's going well, they go, I'm going to harness this. I'm going to cultivate this. I'm going to work at this. I'm the opposite, man. I go, I'm just like, I live in a dream. So I had the best job, and it was in drive time, and I left it like an idiot. I left it. I still don't know why. And I regret that to this day. I'm going, what was I thinking? That was the most. I mean, I had other issues going on, and my mum had just died, and I was living in a hotel in Melbourne, and then, but the money I was making was ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But I never appreciated it. I just thought, I'll get different ways of making money. I'll be right,
I think the thing you realise too there, once there's a certain amount of money you need to do all the stuff you want to do.
Yeah.
But once you start getting over that, the amount over that is less satisfying. I don't know, like, in terms of like every extra dollar you earn past a certain point, it's diminishing returns.
Diminishing returns.
And
But
if you're in a situation where you're not happy, like radio's hard, would be hard, I'd imagine, in that situation where you got to go on every afternoon and be funny and make people feel upbeat when you're not feeling that yourself. That's a hard thing to do.
It can be, but I had a few other issues that contributed to me wanting to go, because I was alone for 2 years. I lived in a hotel. It was a nice hotel, and they treated me really well. But you got to be mentally strong.
That's not a home.
It's not a home, and my wife was elsewhere, and so it wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right timing. But man, there was so many privileges. Like, you wouldn't believe that. Like, I look back on that now, I go, did that really happen? Like, I had a gig, right, where they asked for me, because I was on radio. They asked for me to go to it was like the poker championship of the world or something.
Oh, wow.
And they said, and I said, do you have a stage? Is it, what kind of gig is it? He goes, no, you don't have to perform. You just show up. And they offered me $10,000. They paid business class flight to Sydney Casino, and put me up in a suite. And I said, what exactly do you want me to do? And they said, just stand there and take a photo with as people lose, they come off the table and you take a photo with them. I said, okay, easy, right? And the ironic thing
This
was
is an insanely good gig.
Man, it was like, it was obscene. That's what it was. And the ironic thing was, most of the people at the table were older Chinese people who didn't know who the fuck I was. So they had to stand there and take a photo with me, and they go, okay, we'll take a photo.
One of those great gigs of, who is this for?
It's just like too much money. It was just obscene amount of money, and I'm not money focused.
Yeah.
So I thought, I just thought it's time to move on. I'll get something just as good. And that was, and then Marty Sheagle took over from me. And
whatever happened to that guy?
Oh, man. Exactly. He was a bit more sensible than I was.
Oh, man. It's funny, though, that you can look back like that. I remember one time you and I had a conversation where you said to me, your ideal, and I don't know if this was just a snapshot in time, your ideal career would be doing just enough radio, television, and all those things that you can sell tickets.
Yeah. Look, it's the only time I'm totally comfortable, or the only thing I truly look forward to, is doing stand-up to a room full of people. If it's a good room and I've got a good show and it's solid and I'm confident with it, there's nothing more exhilarating and satisfying than that. Everything else feeds that. For me, everyone's different. Some people are the opposite. Some people do stand up to get acting work or to get a TV gig or whatever. With me, it's always been the first love. It's the thing that that I would love to do as long as I can.
Well, you do have because I remember when we did a few of those runs. One of my favorite things to do was to sit and watch you, because you had your an hour or so that you were doing at the time, but any given night it was more or less the same material.
Yeah.
But any given night it was completely different. You usually started with one of out of two or three things.
Yeah.
And you'd always close with the same story.
Yeah.
But in between, it was always in different orders.
Keep
and one of my
loose.
favourite things would be to see you go off and go, how is he going to... And I know I'd see you work out, okay, this is where we are time-wise.
Yeah.
And I'd go, how is he going to get from that to there so he can land this thing?
That's the ADHD. Because his mind is scattered.
Yeah.
That's the only way I could do it. The thing is, there are other people. We know our friend Bruce Griffiths.
Yeah.
Who's brilliant, but he's very word for word. He's meticulous. He's almost like a machine,
Yeah.
And I can never do that. For a start, I can't remember. I have to kind of keep it loose. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
Well, because Bruce does, for anyone who hasn't seen him, check him out, because he's a one-liner comic.
Very clever.
Amazing.
But he's like a tactician, isn't he?
Yeah, it's sharp jokes. It's all for him, it's in the writing.
Yeah.
And
it's precision.
Oh,
but if
amazing.
I try to do that, I wouldn't remember the next bit. I couldn't. How did that go again?
Well, that's the thing too. Is I think you've got to find in stand up. You've got to find what works for you.
Yeah.
You got to do what one you think is funny.
That's right. Yeah.
And two, what do it the way you will have fun doing it. And for Bruce, I think his passion's in the writing of it.
Yeah.
Because I get the feeling sometimes, and I'd love to. I'll get him on this.
Yeah.
But I'd love to talk to him about it. Sometimes I don't know how much he actually enjoys the performing of it.
Yeah. I think he does it to meet women.
Yeah.
I think he told me that once.
That's so good.
Yeah.
He's
a big effort.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I said, have you heard of Tinder?
Yeah. Well, there's got to be an easier way.
Yeah.
But yeah, because he knows, it's sort of very much the opposite of you in that, I've talked to him, he's doing a 12-minute set. He knows exactly the number of jokes that is.
But look, it's no different to music. you get people who are into jazz, who can improvise or whatever, and there are people who do rock or, it's as varied as that. Every comedian has their own. Someone's calling.
Someone's
I think
calling.
they're going. Bruce, what do you say about me?
Stop talking about me.
I don't want to. Yeah. It's people don't realize that. When they go. This girl came up to me. I was in a pub somewhere, and charming lady. She came up. She said, "Mate, I don't find you funny." I said, "That's fine. You don't have to find me funny. You don't like every piece of music that you hear. It's just not. It's not something that you can rationally expect that everyone finds you funny. There are people who are just not going to find you funny."
I like though that there's this thought some people have, and it's only because they haven't really thought about it. Is that idea that they almost get angry that other people find you funny, but they don't. No, I don't find you funny, mate. No,
what's funny about him? Well, it's not all about you.
Yeah.
It's not just for you.
This is super subjective. We don't all have to laugh at the same thing.
Exactly. It's like any art. It's I don't like Picasso. I understand Picasso. If I was walking past a Picasso, I'd go, "What's this rubbish?" But other people who obviously get it.
Yeah,
enjoy
it means something to them.
It means something, and so I got no right to say this is rubbish because people enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. So in that, at what point do you reckon in your comedy career you realised that it was all right for just to be not to be for everyone?
Yeah, it's something look. I'll tell you something. That the most profound thing that I learned, it was a few years ago, where I realised it's not really about the laughs. It's about the connection you make with the audience. You get people who come on and absolutely destroy, and they're completely forgettable. They go, "Yeah, he made me laugh. I can't remember a word. I don't know anything about him as a human being." Then you get other people who will take their time maybe and get 20% of the laughs that this guy got, but they leave such they make a connection that is undeniable.
That's actually, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
that's I hadn't thought of it that way. That's
Yeah,
going to stick.
Well, I really
Expect to see me getting less laughs and trying to make more connections.
Well, no, you can still get the same laughs, but it's all about the energy that you project, likability, connection. The human connection is far more important. And I tell you who taught me that was Jamoan.
Really?
Yeah, when I started, he started a little bit after me. And it's an interesting story because he saw me at the Harold Park Hotel. It's probably a bit before your time.
That iteration of it.
It was a fantastic gig. It was like always sold out, beautiful, smart crowd. And I was on, and he came to see me, and it's the first time he'd seen stand-up. And he thought I was a genius till he saw me the next night. And he went, wait, Ronnie's doing the same shit. And he came up and talked to me. He goes, oh, man, I was so disappointed. I thought you was just making it up. And then he started doing it because he saw me doing it.
Yeah.
And we became really good friends.
Oh, wow.
And then he just shot up. He was the biggest act in the country by a long shot. He was like selling out, huge venues, 2,000-seater venues. But I was supporting him, and I was getting twice the laughs he was getting in you say a 15-minute, bracket.
Yeah.
He would had like long pauses with no laughs. But I realized it didn't matter. It was more about they got to know him. He was open and friendly, and and he revealed more of himself, and that was what people loved. That's what people kept going back for.
Yeah,
not how hard they laughed.
People. I suppose he's one of those guys too that you find, like, it's his point of view that's
unique.
Draws you in, like the way, and you get. So it doesn't always have to be a joke. He's got a fascinating way of looking at the world, which sort of draws you in. So yeah, it's not always have to be these big laughs.
It's not
Some
these
of
big
the
laughs.
Like, oh wow, I never thought of it like that.
But someone else doing the exact same material may not have the same impact because there's something that's magical that happens between you and the audience. So if you make that deep connection, they'll come back. They'll never forget you. They'll go, I related to him. I connected with him on a human level. Yes, the guy before him killed, absolutely destroyed. Don't remember what he's talking about. I laughed hard, but I'm probably not going to see him again.
Yeah, that's the thing that's the hardest to work out. I think sometimes is because you kind of assume when you start that the goal is to just kill as hard as you can.
That's right.
Get as many laughs, get them laughing as hard as you can. But the real goal is to get them to want to come and see you do your stuff. Yeah. So that they'll like, that's how you make the career.
And the only way you can do it is just to be open and honest and be and likability is a big thing. You can't fake that. You can't force that. You can't even learn that. I don't think it's just your energy, and the more confident you are as the years go on and you do it for longer, the more of yourself you can show, because it's a scary thing. When you notice comedians start and they're always a character. When they start, they're always a character of someone, or they're always imitating someone. Because it's scary. It's scary to come out and just be, because you're kind of naked up there,
Well, I think too, if you're 100% yourself on stage and it doesn't work, that's a rejection of you.
Of course.
Rather than
it's
a rejection
much
of
deeper.
the front you're putting on.
It's much deeper. That's right. That's why people like Barry Humphries, I think he's a coward. Yes, he's clever, but he could never do what we do.
No.
He could never, Andrew Denton told me personally, he goes, man, I can't believe, I could never do what you do. It's so scary. It scares the hell out of me.
Really?
To just stand there, and look how clever he is, and he's quite, but it's a unique thing. There are very few people that can do it. You think how many actors there are in the world compared to say stand-up comedians? It's very few, very small percentage.
I've always felt like I talk about. I remember doing one of the first times I did a cruise ship where you're in the main theatre.
Yeah,
and I went the night before to watch what was on, just to get a feel for the space and a feel for the theatre.
Yeah.
And the night before I was on, there was a bunch of people. They're hanging off ribbons, they're twirling, there's acrobatics, and they're like, all this is going on in front of their. And it occurred to me, tomorrow night it's just going to be me standing there, just noticing stuff.
Yeah. Man, it's a big. You're completely naked. There's no, you and a microphone and them, and it's you communicating with. It's very unique. But when it goes well, it's exhilarating because it's only for you.
Yeah.
It's only you made that happen. It's there's not a lot of people that can manage to do that. Everyone, actors need people around them, and they need a script, and they need props and all that shit. Where it's just as simple as just a microphone.
That's that is the fun of it too. I got a mate, my good mate of mine's a muso in Newcastle, and he loves nothing more than watching me after a gig just leave.
Yeah. But it's a thing with cruises. You can't, because you get off and you're in their home.
Yeah, exactly.
you get off and the audience is still there. And if you have a bad night in the first one, that's that tough cruise, that one.
Yeah.
People will come up, mate, you ruined my holidays.
A lot of just order to the room.
Yeah, just stay here. That's why I've never done them. I'm always scared.
I haven't done one in good few years now, and I didn't mind them. I went on with the idea that I'm going to try and learn something.
Yeah.
About either my how I perform, or how much material I need, or how to connect in different circumstances.
Yeah.
So I think if you go on, if I hadn't gone on that frame of mind, I think that some of them would have driven me a little nuts. But I learnt a lot about myself as an act when I did them.
And what?
Just things like that, not to prejudge too much about how transportable your material is, how related. Like, just because someone doesn't have your direct experience doesn't mean they can't relate to your experience. It's sort of, okay, as long as it's funny enough and engaging enough, that you'll get it through.
Everything is relatable if you work it enough.
Exactly.
We're all kind of human. So I might not have experienced exactly what you've experienced, but I know what you.
Yeah, and finding different ways into. Sometimes I realised too, because you do a range of different chips. So you might be on a carnival cruise doing the late night half hour, and it's a completely different, drunker crowd than doing the early show on one of the biggest ships that put you in the theatre, where you're doing to this, nice 900-seat theatre, and it's a more expensive cruise line.
Yeah.
And but you can do the same jokes, just you have to find different ways to get them to engage.
And you can never predict how it's going to go.
No.
You think, the drunk, that's going to be a tough crowd. And sometimes you do it and you go, and the nice crowd tend to be flat.
Yeah.
Or they don't get into you or whatever. You can never really predict it.
No, and that's what I think we were saying before. I had one of those last night where I felt like I didn't connect. And that was what I was just realising when you were telling me that about how just it's how well you connect with the audience. That was what... Last night they were laughing plenty, but I just
didn't feel you may...
And it was entirely on me. I was tired, and I felt a bit... in my own head, like you don't even feel like you're sitting behind your eyes.
You can hear yourself doing it. You can hear yourself doing the lines. No, and the flip side of that is when you just completely, it's like someone else is doing it. You're completely in the moment. Yeah. That's when it's good. That's when I come up with good material. That's you saying like I don't really write material. I'm quite lazy. And so on those good nights...
I wasn't saying you were lazy. You were saying you were lazy.
I was saying, and I was talking to myself then. You're lazy, Akmal. Pull your finger out. I love that saying. On those good nights, when you're making that super connection, when you're almost at one, like you're one with the audience, that's when the good stuff comes out. That's when you can come up with really good material.
Because you write on stage...
Yeah, so because I'm lazy, and I've tried to do it the other way. I've tried really hard. Like especially when they put you in the festivals and you got to come up with a new hour. That's a big call, man. A new hour is people don't realize what that takes, and so you sit there and you try and write. You sit at your desk and all you can come up with is jokes about your desk or your computer.
Have you ever noticed how pen holders?
Yeah, what's with keyboards? What's going on with the keyboards? You almost gotta have that interaction with,
which stimulates.
Yeah,
that's the stimulus for the brain. Because I find sometimes if I'm trying too hard to write new stuff because I'm bored or whatever.
Yeah.
But all I'm doing gigs.
Yeah.
I never feel like I'm getting stimulated to have thoughts, because all I'm thinking about is, okay, what material am I doing this? Or try that new bit or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm too stand-up focused, where sometimes if you just take a few days off and you go do stuff.
That's
all of a
it.
sudden your brain, this stuff that's sitting back here just comes, I've noticed, people do this. Or
some people are really good at like working in groups. Like some of the best times I've had was when I was writing sketches with Gary Eck and Anthony Murr. And that was good because when you get someone who's connected, like who speaks the same language as you comedically, you can produce a lot of stuff there because it's like an energy thing, you know, where they're kind of complementing what you're doing, and we're all going towards the same goal.
That is something too that is underrated, finding that person or people who.
But it's like music, you know, like Lennon and McCartney. If Lennon and McCartney did not get together, that magic would not have happened, or whoever you can think of, any other.
So out of say you and Gary Eck, because I know you guys still do a bit of stuff together.
Yeah.
Who's Lennon? Who's McCartney?
I'm Ringo.
You're Ringo.
Yeah. No, it was just the chemistry. Like we found the same things funny.
Well, I can see that because I'm actually working with Gary tonight.
Right.
With him tonight, and I can see that just in having worked with him a lot, work with you a lot, and just the stuff that comes up in conversation backstage.
Yeah.
It's a similar sensibility. And
similar.
Like I can see how you would tickle each other's.
Yeah, and if you're lucky enough to find someone like that, that's a good way of generating material, you know.
Yeah. I found that. So I'm working over at Fox Sports, working with James, the professor, as he's known on air.
Yeah.
That was when we first started writing stuff together. That was that similar sense of humor, and you can churn out so much more when you find those people. There's another guy we had working with us later on called Nick Ratto, who's a Kiwi comic, who him and I met doing just a run on the Gold Coast like years ago, and it was one of those ones where him, for some reason, we just clicked.
Yeah.
Like we were just off stage, we clicked, and we were making each other laugh.
Yeah.
And so we just kept in touch. You know, there's comedians you work with a bit, and you see them, and you don't keep in touch, or you do keep in touch. But some people you just end up keeping in touch more than.
It's the chemistry. It's chemistry. That's it, you know. And if you're lucky enough to find someone, I think that's a good, because you can produce a lot more.
Yeah.
And on the flip side of that is you find someone who doesn't speak your language. You know what? TV producers used to do this because they're all idiots. You know, they're always overpaid idiots, right? In my experience.
Akmal and I would love a TV show. Thank you.
Yeah. When I say idiots, I mean, you know, just I mean that in the nicest possible way.
Used to be none of the new ones.
No, the ones that could employ us are brilliant. You know, but what they do is they get, oh well, you're funny and you're funny and you're funny. Let's put them together and make a sketch show.
Yeah.
And it's the dumbest thing because they're all speaking different languages. It's like getting a jazz musician, a heavy metal guy, and go, okay, write some songs. It's unlikely.
Yeah, exactly. You know? That's interesting. I like the way that analogy of the like music, because I think sometimes comedy gets undersold. Like it's all just gets thrown in one basket.
They don't understand it. They go, oh, you're funny and you're funny. But wait on, we speak different languages.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different thing altogether. You don't get
there's
it.
many, many different sensibilities. And I can actually see too, now when you said you and Jimoan were good mates, and I can see that sensibility clicking really well too.
Yeah.
Like, just
like we didn't click comedically, less so. We were good mates, but his comedy's so different to mine. It's such a different rhythm, different.
You both strike me as guys that just enjoy having you enjoy enjoying life, like having fun off stage. You're not like, you know, trying to take everything too seriously.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think you're wrong there.
Oh, really?
But most comedians I know are quite miserable. People find it hard to believe that, you know, that they get depressed or they get, you know, melancholy or get negative. Or
I think it's natural though, because they talk about, you know, so you get your, I forget what it's called, serotonin or whatever, and you get that high from the gig, and that adrenaline rush, and then. Like if you get used to getting that every night,
it's an addiction. It's like heroin.
Yeah, it becomes an addiction. And when you're not getting it, then.
But not just that. You got all day to yourself to just think about stuff, and you're trying to bend reality and trying to be funny, and then when you have a bad night, it's just such a hurtful thing, you know, especially early on. You know, I got booed off by 700 women. Once when I started, and I was doing it, they got me to work with strippers, male strippers from Canada, and back then there was a law that you had to employ an Aussie, just act as equity.
Yeah.
And so they go, oh, let's get a comedian, and I go, yeah, I'll do it. So we're going around Australia, and these guys were like these hot guys, you know, just chiseled gods, and me. And I came on, and it's just like I used to have like curly hair, but I started to go bald in the middle, and I was a bit pudgy and a bit of a tummy, you know. And they said, oh, you have to wear a suit because it's a really slick show. These guys like danced with Michael Jackson. And
This is classy strippers. Wear a suit.
Well, yeah. There's the, wear a suit. That. Yeah, no pants required, but wear a suit. Yeah. But so I went to St. Vinny's. Oh, this is back in the 90s, and got a tuxedo. So I looked like an idiot. And these women were just like, sometimes we did Wangaratta, which is near Albury.
I know Wangaratta.
Oh man, it was this nightclub, and these women. The show was starting at 9, but they let him in at 7, and they kept drinking and drinking and drinking. And they wanted to see cock. And the lights go down. They go, yay! Please welcome our first act, Akmal. Hi, how you going? Where are you from? Boo! and they had these plastic cups, these little, because it was a violent town.
Yeah.
And the glass wasn't allowed, so everyone had these plastic cups. And within 30 seconds, I was just showered with these plastic cups, just some like half filled with beer and shit, and I just kind of but they wouldn't even let me get a word out,
Do you reckon any of those ladies in the years since have seen you on TV and whatever, and just gone, I threw a plastic cup at him once?
I don't think those ladies would have remembered anything about that night except men's penises in their faces.
Oh my God.
It was an awful night. And that, back then, that's one of the few times I actually thought, I can't do this anymore. This is too painful. It's just hurtful. But you recover. And you make a joke about it.
Tell me the strippers were at least, nice to you about it.
Yes.
So they were good?
They were really nice, yeah. They're all, they used to shoot up steroids in the bus in their thighs like this. And they're like, whoa. And they treated women so badly. Like they were
really?
They were just like, there was like a conveyor belt. Some of them, because they're all in their early 20s. As I was. And they just like every night there'd be like women just waiting, like in the waiting room. And they'd be summoned.
Oh my God.
It was so bizarre. It was like the weirdest thing that I've ever seen.
Wild days on the road. And people think it's hard to get started in comedy now.
But I didn't do it. I quit. And then they said, who do you recommend? And I don't know if you know Hollywood Brett Sheagold.
Yes.
So I got him, and he got sacked after the first night because he pretended to be American, and he was really sexist. And he just put on this character, and they got rid of him. And they got a musician instead.
Oh man, some poor musician who thought it was their big break. Then.
Yeah. But it's not. You can at least play louder.
Exactly.
It's not as. It's not as fragile.
Not as intimate.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, we are getting to time. I need to get you back to your hotel because you've got a sound check to do. But thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for inviting me.
Mate, we've barely scratched the surface, so we'll get you back at some stage.
I'd love it.
Mate, I've actually read your book, so there's a bunch of...
You're the other one.
I've got Post-it notes all through it. I need to ask you about.
Mate, they asked me to write a book for some reason. They thought they confused you with Nelson Mandela or someone. And I thought, and they gave me a big advance. And I thought, again, it was just the wrong time. I rushed it. And we're now recording this in our agency, in our management, A-List Entertainment. And look, see that speaker?
Yep.
That's holding up my books there. See, and they got like they prop up computers and they use them as doorstops, and Ando is also with the management. You don't see any of his books; they're all sold. They're all sold out. Yeah, it's every time I come here, it's a reflection of my failure.
Oh, come on! You got a poster out there.
I got a poster. Good. Yeah, that's right.
Mate, thanks so much for doing that.
Thank you,
was fun.
Thank you, Andrew.